Hi and welcome back to Mike Makes It. Today we're going to make a YouTube subscriber counter. So join me in the workshop and you can see how I put this together. Alright, we'll go through all the parts I'm going to use to make the sub counter. The main processor board I'm using is an ESP8266. You'll find details in the description for where I got it from, but basically back to Amazon again. Pack of 3 come in a little box like that. Show you. 3 of those boards, just over £12 delivered, so £4 a pop. Very, very good. It's got Wi-Fi built in, of course, a USB power, Wi-Fi being needed to pick up the time and date information, and of course subscriber up count information we'll also need. The display is ½ inch, actually it's 0.56 of an inch, 7-segment display. It's an Adafruit backpack unit. It uses I2 data going to it from the microprocessor, so very limited cables required, basically plus and minus for power and 2 for the data to it. On the picture frame, I've gone for a box type picture frame that's got a little bit of a recess in it. So it should look quite nice when you're looking at it. It's going to be recessed into the back of the box. It basically, rather than the display being right up on the front of the glass, it'll be set back about ½ inch or so, which I think is going to look quite good. And we move that over to one side. That's pretty much a template I'm going to be using. I'll put all this in there'll be a link to the Google Drive, so you'll be able to pull up all the data you'll need for the template if you wish. Just need to put your own name in there, and also on the Google Drive there'll be the code for the ESP32 board. These are the cut lines going round which I shall need, and that's the same size as the inlay that came with the picture frame. The square in the middle is literally for me as a template to cut out the 7-segment display into the hardboard back, because I want this 7-segment display to be flush with the surface of the hardboard, because I'm going to stick this paper template to the hardboard, put the frame on the front, and the display will be virtually touching the paper as it's pushing through the back. Because it's only paper, what I don't want it to do, if you can see that, is deform the paper. I want it to stay nice and flat. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to trim around this outline, temporarily stick to the hardboard, put a couple of pinholes through the paper, take the paper off. I'll have the marks on the back plate here. I can trim that out. We can push the display through and probably some hot melt glue on the back. Have the back of the display in about that position, I would suggest. And the ESP8266 board I'm going to mount about there. So you've got the USB cable power coming down the bottom. I'm going to screw this to the board, but what I'm going to do is remove the pin headers. You'll see this one does come with the pin headers. Now I don't want those, I'm going to remove those, and I'm just going to have 4 pins sticking up from the top here for the data and the power. So yeah, we'll remove the pins, we'll cut a hole in the back of the board, and I'll bring you back here in a few minutes so you can see how I got on. I thought before I go into the garage I'll get the pins out of the ESP8266 board. All I'm doing, I've got in my helping hand device I made a few months ago, grabbing hold of the pin with a pair of tweezers so I don't burn my little fingers, and warming the pad up. Let it melt, give it a second, pop it out. Warm the pad up, give it a second, pop it out. I'm just going to work all the way along this row and the back row there. As I say, I only need 4 of these connections coming off this board, and I'll have them mounting up this way. Whether I'm going to hardwire it in or whether I'm going to put pins and use the DuPont sockets, these, not too sure yet. We'll see what it looks like. Nothing to stop me hardwiring into the board, to be honest, so that's probably how I'm going to do it. But I'll crack on with these, go and have the kettle on, have a cup of tea while I'm in the garage, and I'll cut the back plate out for the photo frame. I'll come back in a minute. Alright, there you go. 1 cup of tea, 1 trip to the garage. We've got a hole cut in the back there. That's going to have this Adafruit 7-segment display pushed through it. I'm going to bond it in a minute with the hot melt glue I've got warming up to my side here. I've also bopped in 4 holes with countersunk bolts for the ESP card to sit on, and it'll go something like that. Just going to attach some plastic bolts, plastic nuts I should say, onto the bolts to hold the bolts in. Then I'm going to slide that on the top, another 4 nuts there. Then I'll hardwire it through to this display. I think I am going to hardwire it rather than having connectors. So I'll run a few cables up here, and well, we're almost finished. I'll get one of these printed out, but with better quality card. Won't quite be card, it's probably going to be 120 gram paper, so that should be thin enough for the display to shine through, but thick enough to retain its shape. We'll find out. But right, a little bit of gluing, a little bit of soldering. Alright, there we are so far. Board's mounted to the backing, screwed in, that's not going to come off anywhere. I've put some hot glue around the 7-segment display. Not that I'm expecting it to be pushed out anywhere, because it's just going to sit in the frame. It is flush with the surface, and once I've printed one of them off, that should sit nice on it. So let's just fire them up, make sure I've got the wiring correct. Don't go by the red and the brown, not that you can quite see where it's connected to, but I've got the brown and the red swapped round. In other words, the red is actually positive. That feeds under the board to go to there. Fire it up for the first time, see if it is wired up correctly. It takes a few seconds just for the processor to kick in. You'll see it'll probably say 0 or my subscriber count. That's current subscriber count 373. That'll flash for I believe it's 5 minutes. This is the first boot up. Then it'll be a steady light until the sub counting increments by 1 or 2 or 3. And once it does increment, it'll flash again like that for 5 minutes. It's just to get your attention really. And that will be going over there. And you can see that lights through. Then get the border. Don't want to spoil it before it's finished, but it's kind of going to end up like that, sitting in the frame. So off to the printer. I'll go and print a better one of those up, and we can put that in the frame along with everything else and assemble it, and you'll see what it's like when it's finished. Right, there's picture frame. The back is looking towards us. I've given the glass a really good clean, and it did need it. There's a lot of fingerprints. So here's the first cardboard insert. That's the one that came with the picture frame. I printed this on 120 gram paper. So that's the next one to go in. Then this just simply goes in the back. And that's job done really. There's some little pins here that came with the picture frame that may or may not hold this in satisfactorily. If it doesn't, I'm just going to go around with a couple of dabs of glue. The old hot melt glue. That should hold it in place. Makes it more difficult to take out. But I think I've actually, in between buying the frame and putting it together now, I've lost 4 of these staples, pins, whatever you want to call them. But they're very sharp because I've just cut my finger on one. But with that in there, if I turn it around, you kind of get an idea what it looks like. See if we can get a little bit further away from the camera. You don't get the full effect on the camera, but it's like 3D. It's set back about ½ an inch. Got a little bit mark on the card insert and a little, oh there we go, I thought it was a bit on the glass, which it was. So yeah, that can go on the mantelpiece somewhere. All I've got to do is run a power supply to it. It draws about 100 milliamps when it's running typically. So there's a little bit too much for a battery pack on there all the time. That'll be running down too quickly. 10,000 milliamp battery pack would keep this alive for about 3 days. So if that's the route you want to go down, you might be able to do some power saving on the processor there. But of course the LEDs is on all the time, so that'll be burning the juice. But yeah, there you go. I got one more sub counter coming through the pipeline, so keep a lookout for that. And of course, if you want to be updated with any more videos I've got coming, then please subscribe and hit the like button and ring the bell. Very much appreciated. Anyhow, thanks for watching.